Hello, everyone. We are moving into our final revision for our GCSE exams. Again, this year we're not too sure at this point what's going to be happening in terms of how you're being assessed. So we're going to do our best to cover all bases and make sure that no matter what the outcome is, you have enough high quality work to be able to achieve the best grade possible. So, as we're watching the news, we're trying to figure out, how are we going to be assessed? The current line of thinking is that teachers will be producing a teacher assessed grade based on all the work that you've done and all the work that you will continue to do. So, for that reason, it's really important that you continue to communicate regularly with your teacher. That means attending live lessons, participating in those live lessons, and also making sure that every task you do from now until the end of the year is of the best quality, because this is what will be contributing towards your final assessed grades. So make sure you keep yourself motivated and engaged, and do communicate with your teachers if there's anything that they can do to assist you. So looking at our final leisure revision. So the things we're going to need are a copy of the digital leisure textbook, plain paper, and lined paper. Now, if you don't have plain or lined paper and you do have an exercise book, you can write in that. All we'll do is cut that paper out when we return back to school and glue it into our new final revision exercise book when we come back. Each lesson, you're going to be provided with a number of key terms, key events, key points that you will need to identify and be able to explain fully. This can be done as notes, as mind maps, pictures. I'll be honest, I'm not really bothered how you choose to do this, so long as you're able to do it well. And you know yourselves, you know how you like to revise. You know that if mind maps work or don't, or writing lists, if that's your style, find a way that works for you. And keep in mind, you'll also be assigned an exam question for every lesson. So for example, if we're completing Leisure Unit 1, we're going to receive the following information if we just look towards the bottom of the screen here. So we will see the unit that we're covering and the things that we must be able to identify and explain. So the examiners have said you need to know about sports and ordinary people in the medieval and early modern eras. You need to know about tests of strength and agility. You need to know about sports for the upper classes, like jousting tournaments, hunting in the 16th and 17th century. You need to know about the reasons for the growth of spectator sport. So that's looking kind of like football and whatnot in the late 19th century, and the growth of professionalism in sport in the 20th century. So you'd be talking about stuff like Wembley Stadium and football, and the influence of sponsorship in media since the 1950s, and lastly, recreational sport in the later 20th century. So there's a lot that you need to know. On top of that, you're being provided with an exam question, and your question is number 5, outline how sport has changed from 500 to present day. It's important to make note of this exam question at the start of every session because you need to know you're going to need roughly 16 minutes to complete this question, which will leave you approximately 35 minutes to be working on your information summaries. So here we have an example of something a student in year 10 has actually done for an information summary for their Elizabeth unit about Mary Queen of Scots and different Catholic threats. We can see there are some pictures that have been drawn. So we've got Mary Queen of Scots, we've got Edmund Campion here. We have some tables as well with certain names, dates, and times, some key terms and definitions. All of this information is a great way of using different memory strategies. So images, tables, notes, but you'll need to do what works for you. This is just one example. We have another example. This is from a year 11 student a few years ago. They have all their information that we can see at the top. So this is Study of America, America Unit 3, which we're not doing this year for our exams. But they simply took the sessions, glued them in, and here's what they produced by the end. So same kind of idea. This student used particularly mind maps, and that worked well for them. So here's an example of what you could produce. This is just a copy that Ms. Cox and I put together for you. But we have Leisure Unit 1, Development and Sport. We've got the title. We have a few key terms. Now again, on your page, it might be double-sided, so you'll have more key terms than this. We've got Hawkeye, Broken Time Payments, and Pot of Arms, key terms that maybe we particularly struggled with. And we made some mind maps for the development of sport in each era. So we have the medieval era, the early modern era, and the modern era. So it might have been an idea for us to put this was the year 500 to 1500. Just so we remember those years. We could do 1450 to 1750. And then, of course, we could do 1700 to the present day as well for modern era. But we're just looking at the theme. So we have mob football, Vikings showing their test of strength. There was no time to go on any kind of leisure or sporting activities because you were always working. And that theme of cruelty, which will go all the way through until the early modern era. So again, just putting down the key themes for each historical era. And there's a top 5 facts here, which is a great way to look at remembering things that maybe you particularly struggled with. So we have, again, 5 top facts here about the development of sport across the 3 historical eras. So just an idea of what you could be doing. So as for completing each session, so just as on an exam, you're going to need to manage your time effectively. And this is what we alluded to a little bit earlier. Look at that exam question and set aside those 16 minutes that you'll need to be completing the question by the end of that lesson. The remaining time you can use again to go ahead and look through all of the key points that you need to know, writing down these titles, and then just summarizing information underneath. This work here that you're doing for the first 35 minutes is going to be preparing you for that exam question. So don't think that this is just kind of busy work. It's going to be giving you all the information you'll need to answer this question very effectively. And if you decide to do those 3 mind maps as we looked at on the previous slide, where you have the medieval, the early modern, and the modern eras, you'll actually be breaking your work down into those kind of 3 important paragraphs that you must use for leisure question 5. So let's just go through how we're going to structure our very first leisure unit 1. So you must make sure you're identifying the following things. The best advice for you to do is just to do one thing at a time. So grab a sheet of plain paper and write down your first point. So we're going to write down sport for ordinary people in the medieval and early modern eras. We can do this as a mind map, as a list, as another method, whatever works for you. Use your online textbook, and if you want to hit Control and F, you can actually search for terms like medieval sport or ordinary people, and anything in the document that matches that search term will be popping up. When you feel that you finish off sport and for ordinary people in the medieval and early modern eras, move on to the next one. So test of strength, agility, and endurance. And write that one down either as a mind map or a list, and go back to your textbook, use all your knowledge that you have to write down information, and when you feel you're finished, move on to the next one, sport for the upper classes. Just go one at a time. I know it can look quite overwhelming at first, but if you just go through it one point at a time, write down your knowledge, use the textbook, you'll find that it's actually a very straightforward process. Now, by the end of each lesson, what you'll need to be producing is the following. So you have to have all of your revision done with your mind maps, your notes, your pictures, whatever it is, and email a picture of that to your class teacher. That will really help you to keep tabs with your teacher on what you're doing, but also to show us how you're getting on. This is going to be really important if teachers are going to be the ones who are assessing you for your final GCSEs. We need to see the work that you're producing independently while you're at home. Failure to complete any of these sessions, they'll result in detentions. When we do return back to school, we will be checking that all of these are finished and that they're finished on time. If there's any short quizzes on Show My Homework, those must be completed as well, but your teachers will keep you updated as to what sort of quizzes you'll be working on. And your teacher's going to be tracking your progress and using this towards your final grade. So all the history teachers, we have some spreadsheets we're going to be using, and we're all going to be keeping tabs on the work that's being produced, as well as your attendance and participation in all online lessons. So please do yourself a favor, ensure you're attending, but also actively participating in the chat. So our first session today. So we're going to start off on our sheets of paper. We're going to write down Leisure Unit 1, Development and Sport, and we're going to start off with our first point. So just as we discussed, write the first one down, use all your knowledge as well as the online textbook to help you, and move on to the second point, third, fourth, fifth, and so on until you're finished all of these. Now, please keep in mind, your exam question is going to take 16 minutes, and this can be written on a lined sheet of paper. And again, when you're finished, ensure that you send a photo of your work across to your teacher. So you're welcome to pause the video now so you can leave it on the screen with all the work that you're to complete. Wish you the best of luck, and if there's anything you need, please do let us know in the chat.